my name is Frank McCue. I'm a local real estate broker here in Santa Cruz, California, and I'm here with our county supervisor at District 1, Manu Koenig, and I wanted to take the opportunity to interview him because he's coming up for re-election. Wanted to give him an opportunity to tell his constituents what he has done over the last few years and what he plans on doing in the next few years. So Manu, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little about, how did you get into becoming a supervisor?
Well, thank you, Frank. It's been great to be here with you today, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about all the things that have been going on in the county and particularly around housing. How I became a supervisor. Well, I actually was really passionate about environmental policy. My name, Manu, is Polynesian for birds, so I grew up visiting my family down in the islands. And as I went over the years, from the time that I was a small child up to a teenager, I started to see sun coral death firsthand.
Right.
And the impact of that is just really alarming. You're going to the islands, a special place, kind of should be away from the troubles of the world, and here you're just seeing the troubles coming in a big way. So when I got back to the mainland after, I think I was about 18, I knew I wanted to do something where I was going to be able to affect environmental policy for the better.
Well, you came to the right place in Santa Cruz.
It's true, yeah. I think we've got a great story right here, the Bay of Life has really done a good job of telling us. The book with Franz Lanting and Chris Ekstrom have put out, that basically says, we had a time in our history here in Santa Cruz where environmental devastation was the norm, right? We fished all the sardines out of the bay, cut all the redwoods down,
right?
And we really picked ourselves up from that rock bottom and said, we don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
And it's from that we've become global leaders.
Sure. We live in the sanctuary here in the Monterey Bay, and it's just a beautiful place to live. So once you became a supervisor, what did you find out that you thought you were going to be able to enact things and get things done? What did you actually find out?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is really around our budget county. So we have $1 billion budget. That sounds like a tremendous amount of money.
Sure.
And it is.
Right.
But the reality is the amount of discretion that I have over the supervisor, that the board of supervisors has over it, is much less. So really, we only have direct control over about a fifth of our budget.
Gotcha. So the state mandates the rest, and then you have a fifth of it, and that piece of pie, you have to cut it up through all these different services.
Right, yeah, so the state, technically the county is an arm of the state. We exist to implement state programs, and so a lot of the money that $1 billion that flows through the county, 4/5 of it has to be for mental health services or this housing program or that, and so by the time we're done, that's allocated, and we have to take care with the other 20% of the essential services that aren't funded with state money, and that's really public safety. So the sheriff, the public defender, the district attorney, and of course, general government.
Right.
And of course, the planning department too.
Sure. Now, are you? Do you have any say in, like, for example, the fixing of the roads? I know that there's a number of roads that got washed out in our last storm.
Yep.
And so we have to deal with roads that have to be done. We also have to deal with homelessness. We also have to deal with crime.
Yeah.
And all these things obviously affect the value of real estate. And being a real estate broker, I get buyers and sellers are asking me about, is this a great place to live? What about the homelessness? What about the crime? What about the congestion? What about all these big buildings that are going up in the downtown Santa Cruz? Things are changing here dramatically. And so what is it that what is your pitch to become supervisor again, and what is it that you have in your mind that needs to be done? What's the most important thing that you think we need to do next?
Well, let's start with the roads. I think it's a great lead in there. The county does spend some local money on roads. Most of that comes from a half-cent sales tax measure that we passed here. But a lot of it still does come from state and federal grants that we get from state and federal gas tax money.
Right.
And we've taken a very different approach after these recent storms, and in terms of how we approach doing all these emergency fixes. We're doing them as emergency permits, which means like it's a much more streamlined process.
Right.
Instead of the regular permitting process, which can take 2-3 years, and kind of a pay-as-you-go approach. We're borrowing money. Granted, FEMA has told us they're going to give us that money, but we're borrowing it to make sure that we get those fixes as quickly as possible and move forward. I think that you know, the most important issue though is housing.
Sure.
Right? I mean, you mentioned homelessness, but homelessness is a factor of the fact that housing is so expensive.
Right. Right.
And so, bottom line is, we do need to build more housing.
Sure.
And you know, we need to do it in a way that preserves the community character and is going to also be accessible to all levels of our community. You know, when I think about Santa Cruz, and you know, I suppose as a pitch to some of the folks who are looking at real estate in Santa Cruz,
sure.
The adjective that comes to mind is dynamic.
Sure.
You know, not just this, there's the waves, there's the mountains, and there's also just a creative energy here that you don't find in a lot of other places.
Oh, there's startups, there's all the activities of sailing, of fishing, of boating, of hiking, you know, there's just so much to do here. There's so many activities here. The weather is phenomenal. I can understand why people want to come here.
Of course.
And if you're going to be homeless, why not be homeless in Santa Cruz? I mean, it's a gorgeous place to be.
Yeah.
But again, you know, when you look at the idea of trying to put more housing inventory out there, it seems like it's very difficult to get permits to be able to do housing. You know, for example, the other day I called PG&E to see about upgrading my, you know, circuits from 100 amp to 200 amp. They said, well, it's a $2,500 engineering fee just to get started, and then it'll take a few months to go through the process, and then we're going to be hitting you with another bill. And is there a top line on this? No, we can't tell you the top line.
Yeah.
We can't tell you when it's going to start. We can't tell you when it's going to finish. And it's just that uncertainty that makes it difficult for people to decide to build an ADU or to, you know, to modify the garage.
Yeah, I mean, PG&E has been a huge bottleneck for getting housing built. I know I can name a couple of multifamily projects where, you know, they're just waiting on PG&E.
Right,
you know?
right.
But you know, I suppose you asked me what my pitch was, why I should be reelected. Well, first of all, I've done a heck of a lot to address the housing crisis and make it easier to build. I mean, some of what you're still will get implemented and you haven't seen the effects of yet. I mean, and this, you know, is one of the big challenges of government. There's stuff I voted on in my first year in office that still hasn't been done.
Right.
I mean, like you know, we voted to allocate the money, but it's a multi-year cycle. And the state will get it to us next year.
Right. Well, homelessness is down.
Yeah, well, homelessness is at you know, historic low.
Right.
It's been since we started measuring.
I understand. I mean, I think you're doing a great job with it.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we housed over 600. We gave out 600 emergency housing vouchers.
Right.
We gave out so many that we were nationally recognized as one of the top performers in getting those vouchers out. And the federal government took vouchers away from low-performing regions and gave them to Santa Cruz. Said, keep doing what you're doing. Here's more.
No, I get it.
Yeah, so our records showed 911 people in total were housed over the last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job.
You know, probably the biggest program that I'm hoping will speed up the pace of permitting is a third-party plan check option. So, you know,
Privatize it.
Basically, you know, privatize it.
Right.
And here's why. You know, we have the housing crisis affects county staff too.
Sure.
We have a bunch of open positions, unfilled positions in our planning department that we can't hire for because unless someone already lives here, they can't afford to move here.
I understand.
This catch-22 of housing is so hard to build, and yet it's so hard to build that we can't hire the planners to build more housing.
Well, I mean, like I think I mentioned to you this the other day, is why don't they set up a plan where they already have like 4 sets of plans that are already approved, and you can go in and pick which one you want, like a menu, and say, I want this one, and already have an approved contractor, already have an estimated cost and timeline, and stamp, you're approved, go.
And you'll be happy to know, Frank, that I proposed that exact program. It was approved by the board, again, in my first year, and hopefully we're going to have those plans posted for ADUs to the county website by the end of this year, that people will be able to do just that. Go get plans that are pre-approved and go to work.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a lot of elderly people in this county, of course, right? I think over 60% of the homeowners are over 55.
We're the fastest aging county in the state.
And there's so much that could be done, because I know that a lot of these people don't want to get involved with housing somebody in their home, but they could convert the garage into an ADU or a junior ADU, and if they could do that in a timely fashion, and it's cost effective, obviously that additional income, maybe they could put a deed restriction on it for 10 years and say if you take Section 8 vouchers, or if you do it by income qualifying, you know, it would make it a lot easier for people to get housing and be willing to do so.
Yeah, so we've actually done everything, or I should say, there's always more to do, but we've done a lot to make it easier to build ADUs. I mentioned the pre-approved ADU program, pre-approved plans. We've also waived permit fees completely for any ADU 750 square feet or smaller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we figured, hey, these are basically units that are affordable by design. Because we went back and looked at what happened to, you know, the ADUs that have been built so far and who they were rented to, and what we found was, hey, by and large, these are affordable units, not costing people too much money, that are going to moderate or low-income people. So let's build more of those.
Right. Is there anything in the works with regards to those that are already existing that were built without permits? Is there any way that they could streamline that instead of penalizing people for the idea of how do you get them to come out of the closet?
Yeah, well, I think that if they were basically trying to get a permit for, you know, get a all come free type permit,
right?
You know, to approve a building or get a permit for a building that's already constructed. I mean, it's a little bit of a special case, but I would certainly work to be happy to help such a person to see if we can get the permit waiver applied to that too, the fee waiver.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing is that sometimes they go in and they say, okay, in order for you to get this permitted, we need to look at the whole house and see if there's anything else that's unpermitted. And so they get caught in catch-22, where it's like, if I come clean and try and get something, you know, permitted, are they going to make me get everything else up to date? There's the challenge, right? Because then it's, you know, now we have to inspect the house, and oh, we found that you have an extra bathroom, and now you're going to have to get that permitted, or you have a shed in your backyard that's not got the proper setbacks. And I mean, that's all over the county. But I'm just saying, you know, that's the fear that people have, is that, do I go in, do I do open kimono, and then I get penalized for it, and now I'm stuck, and now I'm in the process, and now I've got to go through this whole thing, and, you know, I'm getting beat to death over this thing, and in the end, I'd rather just tear out the ADU that I have, or, you know, the garage conversion.
Do that, yeah.
Right?
We need the housing.
I know that we need the housing, and that's what I'm saying. It's one of these catch-22s, and how do we open the door and you know, create an amnesty program, you know, where we allow them to go ahead and get those things permitted without penalizing.
Yeah, we have had such an amnesty program for many years called, you know, existing structures program. And now really just there's some new state legislations coming into effect that will sort of replace it. But I agree, we can always do more to make it easier for people to basically become legal and come above board.
Well, I mean, the high cost of living here, and seniors are, you know, they're stuck in their home because they don't want to sell their home and have to pay the capital gains tax. You know, they don't want to sell it and move somewhere else and get a loan at 7% now, and so they just stay in their home, and now they've got all this housing yet, but they're not opening their doors to people to come in and to rent out a room or two. So it makes it really difficult, and they don't feel safe and secure about it. You know, if they would come up with a program that would allow people to go ahead and create this additional housing.
Yeah, so I mean, I mentioned the waiver of fees for any ADU that's 750 square feet or smaller. We also have a program, you know, we're trying to figure out, well, what's stopping people from building ADUs, right? This is such a good way to add capacity. And we've been building, you know, looking back over the last 8 years or so, somewhere between 17 and 53 ADUs per year. Not bad, but it could be more, right? I just checked, we've built 21, or permitted 21 ADUs so far through August in the county. So we try to figure out what's stopping people, and basically it seems like just the process of even getting a permit, designing an ADU, just like, it's complex, right?
It's the uncertainty.
Yeah,
that's the challenge.
That too, but you know, so we wanted to be more certain. That's why a lot of the streamlining rules around building an ADU have helped. But then we also have a program if you're moderate income, or if you agree to deed restriction on the ADU that gets built, we'll basically provide you a ton of assistance in getting that built. We'll give you, you know, help you with site evaluation, with doing the planning, with construction management, with finding a tenant. So that's called the Hello ADU program.
Right.
You can apply for it on the county website for ADUs right now.
Yeah, but you know, obviously there's out-of-pocket expenses. Is there anything that they could do with regards to, say, low interest rate loans, or is there any way that they could fund it possibly?
Yeah, we did have a forgivable loan program that was up to $40,000 per ADU after 20 years, that could be forgiven. That's, when looking at where to invest the public funds, we decided to spend it, that the forgivable loan program weren't seeing quite the results we wanted, so we directed that money instead, which is close to $1 million, into this assistance program to help people with the technical aspect of building.
Because it seems to me like it's a great investment into housing, because when you're looking at converting a garage into an ADU, the foundation's already there, the walls are there, the roof is there. So it's really about building the inside information, right? Yeah. The infrastructure on the inside. And so somehow where you can make it where it's profitable for the county. Mm-hmm. In other words, giving a loan and then taking a portion of the rent in order to pay for that. Sure. It seems to me like you could turn it into some form of a profit center, even if you got a non-profit involved, to where they could get some type of tax incentive. Mm-hmm. Just to get people to invest in it, because after all, it is housing.
Yeah.
And it's housing that's going to be here forever, and it's going to increase the value of the property as well. And so when people do decide to, a lot of times older people like to move into the ADU and rent out the rest of the house, so they can rent it out to a family. Yeah. And you put a deed restriction on it to allow them to do it to a Section 8 housing or an income qualifier. I think you get a lot more than say 21 or 25. Seems to me like those numbers are low.
Yeah.
We should be looking at 200, 300, because there are so many people out there that would love to do this if there was a pathway.
Yeah. Well, those are some good creative ideas, and like I said, there's always more work to do, and try to make it easier.
So how can we get a hold of you? How can we, obviously donating to your program as far as re-election is concerned? What are you running on? What is your campaign slogan? What is it that, what is the most important thing for you to do to get yourself re-elected?
Sure. Well, my campaign slogan is "Promises Made, Promises Kept." Right. I said that I'd address homelessness by building a number of tiny house villages. We've got a Veterans Village being built in the San Lorenzo Valley. We've got 4 units of tiny homes going in Watsonville, and we're talking about a behavioral health tiny home village here in Mid-County. Actually, we'll be voting on this coming Tuesday. I ran on making improvements to our roads, and we are updating really 3 out of 4 of the major corridors in the first district here.
Right.
SoCal San Jose Road, SoCal Drive, Portola, and that's 3. I mean, the last that before, I would say the Capitola Road. I mean, of course, we're working on the highway too. And then housing. I mean, like I said, we've done a lot to try to build housing. I think we've made great progress. I mean, finding an apartment. I know a lot of people like to go at it with a hatchet, and it is looking different than when I took office. We have a new planning director. We actually combined public works and the planning department, so to literally bring down the walls between those departments and make it easier to get a permit, because we'll be talking to each other. We've set up the Unified Permit Center. We actually have a digital dashboard where you can see how long it's taking to get permits of all different kinds now. Which is really helpful, especially for me as a policymaker, because I can sit down and have a frank discussion with the planning department now, like why is it still taking 198 days to get an ADU permit?
Right.
So yeah, I think on all 3 of those major issues, we've made substantive progress. I mean, not to mention things like fire. We've got 3 new fire cameras installed throughout the county. We're getting the Summit shaded fuel break done. We've got 4 times as many Firewise groups now across the county. Those are basically neighborhood groups that are working to invest and reduce fuel loads around homes and make their neighborhood safer for fire. Again, that's thanks to an investment that I made in the Firewise program. So yeah, promises made, promises kept. You can donate at manukoenig.com. And if you want to get a hold of me for anything official business, you can visit Santa Cruz County, go to Board of Supervisors, and click on my picture on there for the first district, or email me at manu.koenig@santacruzcounty.us.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Frank.
All right. We'll get together in a couple months.
Sounds good.
All right, pal. Take care.
You too.